Hey everyone, thanks for joining. My name is Ahmad with the StarPower.Network, and today we're talking about the Done For You solar franchise system. And we have joining us on the call today, Jake Ryan McDonald, and he has a ton of experience in solar. Him and I go back a long time, and I've been watching his journey. So Jake, thanks for joining. Why don't you give us just a little bit of your background and just an intro about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here. So first of all, I've been in the solar industry, home improvement industry, home services industry for about a decade now. Primarily focused over the past 6 years on a consulting business where we bring together those two types of services, right? We found a lot of synergy between the HVAC and the solar industry. And so, those things work hand in hand. And we've had a lot of success helping those two companies combine and creating synergy between the two.
That's awesome. Why'd you get into solar in the first place?
So it started out as I was, like I said, in home services. I got into solar simply because, it just made sense. I heard a solar pitch and realized that there was some opportunity there for me to help with the sales side of those things. And then once I started actually getting into, the industry itself and realizing how much money people were saving, how good of an investment it actually was, and how much money put back in people's pockets, it's something I just became passionate about. On top of that, it merged, almost seamlessly with what I was already doing. So it was just a natural fit to move in that direction.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. It's cool to see people take their passion and apply it in such a great way. So I know you've done some really interesting things in HVAC specifically. Tell me a little bit more, like why HVAC? Why have you been focusing so much of your time and excitement there?
Yeah, so it really started, I guess, with selling solar in Texas. A lot of the systems out there are so large, the energy consumption is so high that we couldn't fit 100% of the system on a home, and so we needed to reduce the size of the system to be able to fit it on the roof. But then it wasn't covering the entire bill, and that's people's whole goal with solar, right? Is to eliminate their utility bill. So what we found is that there were a lot of companies out there who were pitching these quote unquote energy packages that were, a little bit of insulation or, some a solar attic fan or something, and pretending that it was going to drastically reduce the bill by 30%, and then building these small solar systems, but they weren't getting the results for the customers. Ended up with a lot of customers who were upset down the road. So, what I wanted to take a look at is what can we actually do that truly reduces the energy consumption of the home? And being the fact that the air conditioning and heating is the number one consumer of energy in the home, that's what led us into merging together the HVAC and the solar industry, being able to reduce significantly the size of the solar system, and then still be able to get people that offset that they're looking for. So they were not able to only go solar, but also upgrade the home at the exact same time.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And I know you had some pretty extraordinary results. Let's just jump to like the cherry on top. What happened when you really went in and did this? Like what was the main value that the HVAC company owner got out of choosing to do this in his business?
Yeah, so first of all, it started with the solar companies, right? The solar companies were now able to get a lot more sales than they wouldn't have gotten before by adding HVAC, right? And then after a while, I realized in that consulting space that we could flip this the other way around as well. And so we could now not only offer HVAC to solar companies, but offer solar to HVAC companies. And so, now your average ticket price with an HVAC, might be $10,000 when your average ticket price with solar might be $40,000. So you're able to drastically increase the revenue and the bottom line of a business. And, you're selling something that you already have somebody that's interested, already have somebody that's taking out a loan. They're already trying to save energy and save money, and you can offer them a much broader and much more inclusive solution.
That sounds sweet. So you did this with a specific company. I know they were looking to sell that company at one point. And just tell me a little bit briefly, like you added solar. What did that look like for the company owner? What happened to his
Yeah.
company value?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the first major ones that we did, we took an air conditioning company that had been in business for about 6 or 7 years. They were pretty consistent, right around that $6 to $8 million a year mark. We were able to add solar into their business. They were actually looking to sell the business right prior to adding solar in. We actually came in, added solar to that business, and in less than 24 months was able to grow the revenue enough that they ended up with an additional $6 million on the cash out of that business whenever they went to sell it.
Wow, that is significant. And I know that it probably didn't come easy. You shared with me that you learned a lot. What main problems did you run into in the journey of getting to that end goal?
Yeah, so the biggest hurdle that we came across was that, most of your HVAC sales guys are more on the technical side of things. They're guys who are going out to a home typically to do a repair, or sometimes, to sell a new system. But a lot of times it starts out as a repair, and then, they find out that they need a new system or something like that. So you have the biggest struggle is getting the HVAC industry to now learn an entire new thing, because solar, it's not a hard sell, but it is it can be complex. There's a lot of intricate pieces to it. And so there's a lot of knowledge and information that the salesperson needs to have, a lot of questions that need to be answered for them to be able to sell that. And so the biggest hurdle that we came across was we started adding solar to the list of things that they could sell. They now were missing out on some of their solar or some of their HVAC sales because they were trying to sell solar, right? And so it was kind of like maybe like a little bit of a system overload to the HVAC reps, because it was difficult for them to transition from selling something that was a need at $8,000 to $10,000 to something that they perceived as a want at $40,000. And so it was primarily trying to shift the HVAC sales mentality to a solar mentality. That was the biggest hurdle that we had, was using the same people in-house to try to sell those things. In addition, it also requires a pretty large amount of capital investment to get into the solar industry, right? You have to build finance relationships. You have to have a relationship with the distributor. You have to have upfront capital to be able to, to pay for the equipment and things like that to actually install. And unlike HVAC, you're not installing it the next day and getting it out the next day. Sometimes you have 30 to 45-day turnarounds on these jobs. And so that's probably the biggest obstacle that we faced, when implementing it the other way around, from solar to HVAC rather than HVAC to solar.
Yeah, that sounds like there was a lot to overcome, and I can understand why, there's people that I've heard that have looked at getting into solar and then have quickly retreated after losing, a ton of money. Obviously, I don't want to give away, any of the secret sauce, but, what happened after you figured out how to scale? What did that do? Obviously, you said, they gained a huge amount of company valuation, and I know that owner was able to make a successful exit. But like, once things started to flow, what did you see happen in terms of like the number of attachments that people who went HVAC and did a major replacement? What did that translate to with those people actually getting solar once you kind of cracked that code?
Yeah, so cracking that code, and again, I won't give away the the secrets, right? But cracking that code really involved, delegating responsibility in a way that made sense. And instead of overloading people with information or getting people to try to play two different roles, it was understanding that everybody has their strengths and weaknesses, figuring out how to delegate those processes, and figuring out who should be in charge of each step of the process. And instead of kind of, piling it all into one thing, kind of segmenting it out to where it made more sense to the homeowner. And what we ended up seeing was about 20 to 25% of the new sales were able to be converted and upgraded into a solar sale. So on average, again, about 20 to 25% of those people were able to still get the new system. They were still buying the same HVAC they would have purchased, but they were out now being upsold, an additional 20, 30, $40,000 solar system, which I'm sure you can imagine what that does for the numbers of the company.
Yeah, super exciting stuff. And I know in some cases with energy efficiency companies, window companies, roofing companies, that attachment rate is even higher. I've heard, roofing companies getting as much as 30, 40, 50% attachment rates of upselling solar. So that kind of leads me in my next question. How would this apply to, any other HVAC company? Is this something that like really anyone could do, or there have to be major conditions that would create that success?
Well, I think it's something that anyone can do. It's just, is there the bandwidth and the capital there to do it, right? So doing it in the traditional way, of kind of, onboarding an entire new division of your company, hiring people, training new people, right? That can get pretty expensive. And that's something that, there is somewhat of a barrier to entry there. I know when you're looking at a solution like this with the solar franchise system, this kind of eliminates the majority of those major obstacles that you would have to deal with. So if it's being done from a place where it's a done with you type of service, where you have experts helping you out with this, then yeah, I mean, it's something that pretty much anybody with an infrastructure of a legitimate HVAC company, right? You need to be doing good work for people. You need to have good reviews. You need to have happy customers. But as long as you're in a positive light in your community and you're doing well as an HVAC company, this is a pretty easy onboarding process to something like this. Now, again, to go the traditional route, yes, I believe there is a pretty big hurdle there.
Got it. Any reasons why this wouldn't work for a home services contractor like HVAC or roofing?
Well, again, I think that comes down to why it wouldn't work would be how you attack it, right? So if you have someone running the company who's kind of like, I like to do everything myself, I know all the answers, right? And I'm gonna, I'm gonna get it done, then I believe that there's some pretty big hurdles because it is an entire new industry. There's a lot of nuances to learn. There's a lot of things, from the sales to the installation to the financing. There's a lot to it. And so I do believe that it's probably not for everybody in that sense. But offering the solution like there is with solar franchise system, there's a huge opportunity because they're not taking those risks, right? They're not having to outlay that amount of capital. They're not having to hire that amount of manpower to be able to take these things, to take this. I think that it really, from the sense of, is it not for anybody, again, unless you're out taking advantage of customers or not doing good work. If you're a company that's kind of a fly by night and you're going to rebrand and rename your company in 12 months, probably not a great idea for you. But anybody who is looking to build a sustainable company, who's looking to be around for a little while, or just looking to add to their business to be able to exit soon, I believe there's a great opportunity here. I believe that we're right in the middle of this kind of solar revolution, and there's not really a better time. Especially if you have an expert team behind you that can kind of guide you and hold your hand through the process.
Yeah, well said. Well, exciting times indeed. I appreciate you coming on to answer some of these questions. I know that you're busy helping a lot of different companies these days, in the solar space and in home services. And also on the software side, just some really, like you said, exciting times that we'll have definitely some future conversations about. In the future, I want to talk to you about some of the other software that you guys have been integrating into the solar proposal tools that are out there, and just some of the other things that we're seeing are going to really propel this mass adoption of solar moving forward, and appreciating the work of working class America and blue collar businesses, especially ones that are family owned. So I know we have a lot of business owners that we can bring on as well. So look forward to future interviews, and thanks again for your time.
Awesome. I appreciate it.